the next generation of lifestyle awareness that will transform your life significantly. Hi, welcome to Living Wow Out Loud. I'm your host, CallyRae, founder of the Living Wow Center and author of the book, 8 Lessons Lupus Taught Me, From Surviving to Thriving with Autoimmune Diseases. Living Wow is a lifestyle of choice and intention that was born from the truths that, number one, your body is designed to heal if you give it the environment to do so. Number two, you don't need a label or permission to be the expert in your own body. And number three, more than 80% of all diseases can be prevented or reversed by lifestyle. Unfortunately, this isn't what we're taught in our standard American diet and lifestyle culture. This podcast is a voice of hope and community where you will learn how to live a life of thriving that honors and embraces those three truths. Though you are an individual, you are not alone, and you can thrive living wow too. Welcome back to Living Wow Out Loud. I'm your host, CallyRae, and today we're going to do a follow-up, kind of an extension of last episode. So in the last episode, we talked about being intentional and seeking out things that are virtuous, lovely, of good report, or praiseworthy. We took kind of a spiritual foundation for the basic idea of filling our lifestyle so full of the good that there's no room for the bad. The way I say that is we're going to be living wow. There's no room for living sad. And really it's just about being intentional and being true to who you were born to be, not who the world has told you to be or coerced you to be or convinced you to be. As I go into today's episode, we're really going to kind of review. We've talked a lot about season change in Living Wow. There is a foundational underpinning of season change that is very important and different than living sad. So you'll notice in a lot of the episodes that I will reference what's happening now in the season that we're live, that it's being recorded. But I also want to back up for a second and review a little bit of how we got to be here, how Living Wow even came to be. So in the intro, I talk about the three foundational truths of Living Wow. The first is that your body is designed to heal if you give it the environment to do so. The natural state of our bodies is health, and that's demonstrated just by a simple cut, right? If you get a cut, like a paper cut, it stings. You need to keep it clean, but within days it heals and you didn't have to do anything special. Your body just innately regenerates and heals in that way. So that's a very simplistic demonstration of that body being designed to heal. But that is really important as we realize that, number two, we can be the expert in our own body. You know what's going on inside your body when things feel different, when things feel uncomfortable, when things feel amazing and you have great vitality and you're in flow. You know what that feels like. And so when that's off, we call that dis-ease, and it manifests as different symptoms. And so then we feel these symptoms, we feel that discomfort, we feel that dis-ease. And so then we go to a doctor and we tell them what is happening, and then they give us recommendations for how to eliminate that. The problem is that our healthcare system has changed, and though we have some really amazing medical professions, we also have a business, and it's become very corporate and very based on productivity. I say these things because I have been a part for a very long time of the Western medical system, and I've seen the changes that have happened in the last 30 years. It's not because our doctors are bad doctors, but it's because of the way services are delivered. And if you've been to the doctor, you know what I'm talking about. You go in, you fill out your paperwork, you meet with the MA or the PA. Usually it's a medical assistant that does all of the basic intake, and then you'll see your physician's assistant. You may, but often not, even see your doctor. And if you do see your doctor, it's usually for 7 to 9 minutes. And again, that's because of the way the system has evolved and become very incorporated. So the bottom line is you can become the expert in your body. You have to tell the doctor what is happening in your body, and then they go about doing tests or interpreting what that means. But what's really important and what I want you to understand is that you have the innate ability to know that. And so I hope that when you go to the doctor, you're looking for someone who is a partner in health. It's becoming less and less common. It is very much you go in, tell them what's going on, they give you a medication or a referral to another specialist or to a procedure. That's how it looks. It's not really a healing mentality in the traditional Western medicine hospital systems that are working in our country currently. So the exception to that are smaller standalone doctors in our community. That would be naturopath or functional medicine, integrative medicine. Those types of doctors are breaking away from that corporate system and do tend to operate in a little bit of a different way. And so with that, you may find that partner that can help you understand your body and help you interpret those systems. But if you don't have that as an option, that's kind of where WOW came from. It came from the process when I was diagnosed with my second and third autoimmune diseases. They came the same doctor visit, the same diagnosis, they came coexisting. But I had already experienced some relief from my rheumatoid arthritis at the time that I received the diagnosis for lupus and oral lichen planus. And so I had already begun to have that faith and that understanding in my body and in my ability to continue to take better care of my body and to be able to heal. And so I said no thank you to that traditional approach to the management of autoimmune disease. And after about 5 years of what I now refer to as my transformation process, that transformation journey, when I got to the end of it, I realized that it didn't look like I expected it to look, like I was told it would look. I was told that I would always have to suffer with autoimmune disease and that I would not have energy and vitality and that I had to take these medications and these procedures, infusions, those types of interventions to be able to manage my diseases. And that's not what happened. And so because I had been told that for so many years by so many people across all of the genres, whether it be Western medicine or even some of my naturopath, natural healers, just kind of thought, yep, lupus, you're stuck with it. And so that's when I wrote the book, 8 Lessons Lupus Taught Me, From Surviving to Thriving with Autoimmune Disease. And then after that, I realized, well, that's not going to help anyone understand that there is an option if they don't hear about it. So we started the Change Your Story presentations and we got the word out. At that point, when we were in the middle of our 50-state book tour, was actually when the COVID pandemic shutdown happened and we could no longer tell our presentation, tell our Change Your Story, meet with groups and do this community of thriving. And that was all shut down, quite literally. And you know what happened during that time, right? We could not share that alternative view of thriving because the whole world was just surviving. So as we finally came out of that and the information that I had gained during the presentations and the questions I had and the requests, it really empowered me to do this podcast. That's why this podcast was born. It was a way to reach out beyond my immediate community to share that idea that there is a better way. And finally, really morphed into this. It was, how do I do it? How do I change? How do I thrive with autoimmune diseases? So as I came out of what has become known as my second transformation, which was that coming out of that COVID era and the impact on our lifestyle and our mindset, the anxiety, the depression, I guess pre-COVID first transformation, I really had a lot of understanding about my physical transformation. And there was definitely some social, emotional, energetic, spiritual transformation that is in the book, for sure, the 8 Lessons Lupus Taught Me. But I feel like that second transformation really solidified the need for our community and the need to understand our energetic body and to recognize that 2/3 of our lifestyle is spiritual and emotional, energetic, not physical. So to be able to figure out how do we wrap around that. And so that's where I created the structure, made it a way that you can go through and assess your lifestyle and figure out what is true to you and what is sad. The standard American diet, our culture, our beliefs, the things that we're carrying that are limiting us or that are causing that dis-ease, and how to recognize them and how to be intentional. Because then that third foundational truth of living well has really started to emerge in the scientific research about lifestyle, and that more than 80% of our diseases can be eliminated or reversed, prevented by our lifestyle. And so that's where Living Well was born. And that's why the Living Well Out Loud podcast got its passion. So that's just a short little history lesson. And I think it's relevant because you need to know where we come from in order to know where we are. And even more importantly, where we're going. Because I'm super excited that this year is the year that I get to live it out. I've been living it out and I've been kind of working with it, and it's constantly evolving because our culture is constantly surviving. SAD is evolving. We definitely have some things that are so deeply entrenched in our traditions, but we also have a lot of political change, social change, technology change. Even our education system has changed. I can't even put into words how much our education system has changed in the last 10 years. So that's a whole nother, a whole nother thing, but it's relevant as I share today because I'm pulling it all together for you and giving you some permissions to be able to pause. This goes back to that season change and recognizing that right now is a really good time to pause and to assess and prepare. I want to share a story with you. The other day as I was driving, I think, to one of my patients doing home health, I get a lot of my thoughts and ideas and inspiration, honestly, during those times in the car. My biggest meditation spot is probably my car, if truth be known. And I was looking at nature. I was looking at all of the beautiful things around me. And it's no secret, if you follow me, you know that this is not my favorite time of year. It's actually a very difficult time of year for me. And as I was kind of lamenting to God about wanting to embrace this change a little bit more, wanting to embrace this season a little bit more, I was struck. I was struck by the beauty of the leaves changing. I'm blessed. I live in Idaho, so we have a lot of season change. Our seasons are very distinct. We actually have jokes that we have like 27 seasons because it can be really super hot and really super cold and everything in between, and it swings all the time. But in the big picture, we do have our distinct seasons. And so right now, there are a lot of trees that are completely bare, and then there are still some that are still red. There's golden leaves that are still on some of the trees. So I was looking at this and comparing and thinking, oh, they're just so ugly when there's no leaves on them. But then I was reminded, but while they're changing, they're actually more beautiful than they are when they're just green. And I love summer because I love to just run full out. And I was taken back because here I am thinking, this time of year is so hard. I don't like the cooler temperatures. I don't like all the loss, all the dying down, dying back of all the plants. But you have to go through that. And if you stop and look at it, it's actually more beautiful than the growth and just that beautiful green. Yeah, there might be different shades, there's different textures, but it's not at all as beautiful. And then I started looking around and it was a little cloudy and blustery, what we would call a Winnie the Pooh day. It was blustery, and some of the trees were empty and naked, and some of the trees were still full on. And the farther you get to the top, the more red. Yeah, it's beautiful. So then I looked at the clouds, and there's just this dark storm, and then there's this blue sky, and there's some white puffy cumulus clouds, and there's so much texture, and it's so dynamic to see the beautiful stormy clouds, right? And I was thinking, it's true. A sunset, a sunrise, it's more colorful and more beautiful when there's clouds in the sky. And again, that symbolism just hit me, that when everything is blue skies and perfect, it's not as interesting, it's not as beautiful as it is when there's some storms and some difficulty. And I thought, life is like that. It's more rich. Maybe we don't like the storms, and maybe we don't like the change. But if we will pause, again, I'm going to frame it with Living Wow. If we will look at it intentionally and not just listen to all of the negative tone that is all around us in sad. So as I frame this podcast, as I frame this episode, I want to be true to that. I want to encourage you. There's a phrase that I used a long time ago, and I still do say it from time to time. There's no comfort in the growth zone, and there's no growth in the comfort zone. So keeping that awareness and that intention, it's all about intention. And if you are feeling like you want an alternative to the standard American diet and lifestyle, an alternative narrative, that's where we've come to. And we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, how Living Wow started with that historical underpinnings of my lifestyle changes and transformation from surviving to thriving with the autoimmune disease. But today, it's really just an alternative narrative to SAD, because it's bigger than just thriving with autoimmune disease. It's thriving with life in general, regardless of whatever label you have, regardless of whatever condition you're living in or with. Maybe it's not an autoimmune disease. Maybe it's a mental health crisis. Maybe it's a financial crisis. We all have change, and that's life. We want to expect that and take it even a step farther and arm ourselves with some truths and some perspective and some intentionality that allow us to come into that change and to flow with it, to understand it, to become expert in our bodies, recognizing that those physical manifestations are clues. So I hope that you will take this time to transition through this season and walk with me. If you are tired of living sad, if you are tired of being tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? I feel like it's a very common place to be, and it shouldn't be, okay? We just don't have to be. That is the fruit of fear and scarcity. And fear and scarcity have no place in Living Wow, because that's thriving. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have bad days in Living Wow. Life does happen. But my point is recognizing that it's beautiful in the change. It's beautiful in the challenge. When those storms come in, it just depends on how we're looking at it, right? With that said, I am going to be true to myself, and this year I'm being very, very intentional, and I have decided that I'm going to pause the podcast and take the winter off, because winter is a time for me to get deeply rooted and learn and prepare within. It's a time to go inward rather than being so outward. So I ask for you to do a couple of things while I'm away. If you are new to Living Wow And maybe you found us because of the autoimmune journey. You maybe have a new diagnosis. Maybe you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you just want to have some tools. You want to understand how to thrive with autoimmune diseases. I'm going to encourage you to go back. The 8 Lessons Lupus Taught Me are available on Audible. There are also bonus episodes here in this podcast. Wherever you get your content from, we're there. And that's on purpose because I want it to be available to you. We added video this year. The older episodes, pre-2024, are audio only. We do have the 50 and 50. You want to watch some cringy videos, go back to our Change Your Story recordings and presentations, the vlogging, the family vlogging that we did on the YouTube channel, which is Living Well Stonehouse style. Those are still there. So again, there's a lot of learning to understand those first two things. Your body is designed to heal it if you give the environment to do so. The key there is the environment to do so. And then the second is you are the expert in your body. You've been living in your body all this time. How are you the expert? You've got to learn how your body is speaking to you. I believe it is 2020, this same time of year as we wrapped up in 2022. I believe there are several series. I did a lot of series that year. And so there's a series in the summer that was understanding your body, and then the body language interpreters. So go back and listen to those episodes. Go back and read the book. Honestly, when COVID happened, and it just hit me, and when I say COVID happened, I'm talking about the pandemic. I'm not talking about the actual virus, because it came and went for me. I had a headache for 2 days. That's what it was for me. And I know for some people it was devastating. But what was devastating for me was the impact to the lifestyle. I literally, 4 months, had lost what I had gained in 10 years. And so I actually went back and read my own book to get that perspective. Again, I needed that perspective because I had had so much of the sad lifestyle screaming at me, and I had just dropped it out of fear and scarcity. I went right back to my set thermostat. I don't know if you've heard that analogy before, but we kind of have a thermostat, and whether it's finances, whether it's emotions, whether it's all different beliefs, we will revert to that setting, just like your thermostat will get you back to that set point, whether you're aware of it or not. I like the saying, be a thermostat, not a thermometer. We don't want to be changing every time the climate changes, every time, meaning the climate of our social. So when I refer to COVID, I'm referring to the social climate that was just crazy. I went back to my Living Wow, but it wasn't even Living Wow at that point. I went back to 8 Lessons Lupus Taught Me to figure out Living Wow. How do I become the thermostat so that I can reset and I don't fall back every time something happens in our world, because it's happening all the time. Living Wow became that thermostat for me to reset my settings rather than just being that thermometer. So go back and watch and listen, read, however you take in your content. Winter is a really, really good time to do that because it's that time we've now made room, right? The whole point of the trees shedding their leaves in the fall is to make room and to put all that energy down into the roots so that as those storms come, there's not as much resistance because there's no leaves. So it can just blow through and not make a big deal. And then in the spring, there's room. There's room for new growth, new opportunities, and a new belief system, right? That's where I'm at today. That's the mindset that I'm in, and that hopefully I'm preparing you for, to create this Living Wow world around you, this community, this information that will empower you to stand up and speak out against the things that are not true to you, to stand up and speak out, to be true to who you were born to be, and to be able to be that expert and understand how to create an environment of healing for your body, how to listen to your body, how to understand what it is saying, And then in the new year, I am so excited for all of the things that I've been working on and will continue to be preparing, learning, nurturing for that release. In 2025, some exciting announcements. There is a Living Well book, and we've taken it from that thriving with autoimmune diseases to being an alternative narrative to SAD. So it's a lifestyle for anyone. It's no longer just for thriving with autoimmune diseases. It's for anyone, because the reality is we all need an alternative narrative to SAD. We have the new book that's going to be coming out in 2025, and along with that, the updated planner and playbook will also be kind of a companion text for that, so you will be able to actually work alongside your new Living Well lifestyle. So the book is the Living Well lifestyle. The planner and playbook will be coming out as a companion to it, and it's a quarterly planner and playbook that you can actually, like an agenda or a planner. It has the systems, the ways that you can bookend your days with your power up and your power down reflection, is to make things, like we talked about in the last episode, top of mind, intentional. If you have a plan, then you're going to be able to enjoy the beauty and see that those storms are going to pass by, and recognize that beauty while you're in the storm, and not get caught up in it and not get overwhelmed to the point where you just can't breathe. That's where I want to wrap up. I want to encourage you, if you are surviving with autoimmune disease right now, please take this opportunity to go back to read 8 lessons or listen to it, depending on your preference. Go back into the podcast and find the different episodes that are relevant to you. Also, my apologies for my Southern Hemisphere listeners. Yes, in the Northern Hemisphere, in Idaho, where I live in the United States, it is fall and we're coming into the new year. But you know what? It's still relevant to you. It still applies, because January is summer for you, and summer is growth and explosion. Like everything is huge. So you're still going through a transition from spring to summer, and your transition is into that new year. So there's nothing wrong with that. And if you go back to the spring of this year, I think it was in June, it would have been in June, where I did that transition from spring to summer. And it looks very, very much like that transition from fall to winter, because there's a lot of reflection, a lot of planning and preparation. And yes, the foods we eat are different. Yes, the days are longer rather than shorter. So you can just flip it, and it still applies. It's still very, very relevant. And the 3 truths are still true, right? Your body is still designed to heal. You need to give it the environment to do so. You are the expert in your body. You just need to learn how to listen and understand your body so that you can interpret it and give it what it's asking for. And finally, a lot of our disease, 80% is the conservative number of the research, but I've heard as high as in the 90s% of disease that we can change, reverse, eliminate just by our lifestyle. So regardless of where you live, maybe if you live in the more temperate climates where you don't have the seasons, they still happen and our bodies still need them. That rhythm of flow with our world is still innately in us, and it has been robbed of us by our modern civilization. So I just encourage you to take this time, take this pause that I'm giving you, and apply it to your life in the way that is most empowering to you. Don't turn it off and be like, oh, I have nothing, I'm gonna just go on autopilot, because autopilot, like I said, it took me 4 months to lose everything I had gained in the previous 10 years. I hadn't had a flare. I had massive energy. I was at my ideal weight. I felt amazing. I literally had taken 20 years off my life. And in 4 months of going back to being automatic, I lost it all and had to rebuild it. The good news is it only took me 5 months to rebuild it. And the second time, so like I said, I read the book. I got intentional about listening to my body and recognizing where I wasn't doing what I do what I should do and what is true to my nature. And then I got busy doing it and ultimately realized as I came out of that, hold on a second, if I'm experiencing this after having such a transformation and such a strong, powerful belief and testimony in our bodies, in their amazing ability to heal, and that anybody can do it, yet I had lost that. So if I can lose it, what about someone who's struggling and doesn't understand their power, their divinity, their true nature? They've only known to go to the doctor. They've only known to take the medications, and now they feel horrible. And the medications are creating side effects, which are creating the need for more medications. And you're trapped in this negative health cycle. And I can't accept that. You don't have to be. I can't accept that. There is a better way. And so I've put it into a system, the 8 systems of Living Wow, so that you can assess it. The last episode, go back to the previous episode, we actually did an assessment so you can see where you're at and where do you need to grow your knowledge base a little bit. Which part do you need to focus on? Do you need to focus on your energy? Do you need to focus on your food and your nutrition? Do you need to focus on your self-care, your movement? Do you need to focus on your supplements and dial in and understand what your body is not getting, what it's not metabolizing, what is being impacted by prescription medications or over-the-counter medications? Do you need to understand your mind and intelligence more? Do you need to be aware of all of that negative, self-deprecating, fear-mongering self-talk and noise that's coming in from the world? Do you need to be more aware of it so you can filter a little bit more actively? Maybe it's your spirit. Maybe you haven't listened to your voice of truth, your spirit, your connection to the divine. Maybe either you never knew about it, you never had it, or the world is so noisy that you have forgotten, so busy that you haven't taken the time to nurture and cultivate that relationship with your spirit to know that. And maybe it's the environment. Maybe you're surrounded by negativity, surrounded by overwhelm, surrounded by trying to be everything for everyone. And all of these, I've been there. And that's why I tell you about my journey. I tell you about my journey so you understand that I've been where you are. And you don't have to settle. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to believe the false narrative of you have to have a diagnosis from a doctor with a medication in order to feel better. In fact, I would argue that that's actually the opposite. You need to listen to your body, understand what it's saying to you, and be empowered to create an environment for it to heal. And it is beautiful. So take this time. If it is a hard season for you, find the beauty. Find those gorgeous red leaves and those golden leaves and those yellow leaves and the different hues. And then the wind blows and they just kind of shower down. And as they're showering, it's almost like this rain of leaves. And it's so comforting. Don't miss that. Don't miss that because you're so busy shivering in the cold and the wind is blowing your hair and making a mess and maybe biting you, or the rain is just coming down so hard that you can't see. It's dark, right? Find the beauty. Find the hope. That's what Living Wow is. And I'm here for you. I've created these extensive resources for you to be able to have kind of a safety net. That's really why I started it. Now, when we come back, there's just going to be so many exciting things coming. So stay tuned for spring. For now, as I sign off, your homework is going to be to make room for the change, recognize the beauty in the struggles and the loss and the fear, be able to replace that with abundance and beauty and hope. It's okay to take time to slow down, to rest, to restore, and be ready so that you can embrace that living wow. There's going to be so many more resources coming. This is just the beginning, which seems crazy to me to say because I feel like it's already been such a journey. But there's so many opportunities, and this community is exploding because now we're not just thriving with autoimmune disease, we're thriving in life. So develop your intentional rhythm over the winter, over this season of transition, so that when we come into this new year, whether you're in the southern hemisphere or the northern hemisphere, we all go into the new year together. Let's go into this new year living wow, out loud, on purpose, and I will see you in 2025. Until then, shine on. Hey, if you find value here on the Living Wow Out Loud podcast, will you please share it with your friends and take a minute to rate it on the platform that you're listening on? That's how we live wow out loud. You know that more people need hope and they need the messages shared. And that's how we get recognized among all the noise. This is where you find your voice. Will you please share and subscribe and rate so that we can grow?